Hello, this is the Committee on BEN, and I'm Patrick Sheldon. Nigeria is a country with oil wealth, but also corruption and poverty. Boko Haram started off by saying that it aimed to fight corruption. That had appeal among unemployed young men. Do you think that corruption, joblessness, and poverty are the main problems spurring Boko Haram? We'll ask our panelists. Is it that, or is it more contempt and hatred of women and the desire to possess them? Lindsay.
I think there's definitely broader ideologies that are at play here. Certainly they're targeting Africa's most populous country. You know, Nigeria is a large country, and so I think certainly they're trying to make a statement in doing that. And to your point, corruption, they're trying to promote, it looks like a place for some people to, if they're appealing especially to those that are unemployed. But I think women are kind of in this state, I don't want to say a byproduct, but they're certainly the victims of this. So it's probably a combination of everything that you're mentioning, but I think certainly the women maybe the men are choosing to come and join, but in the cases of some of the women who have reported, their husbands have been shot, and then they were taken without any say, of course. So certainly in this, if you kind of look at Erickson's psychological approach, it's certainly the age where they're trying to discover their identity versus sort of a role crisis. So I think there's probably all three of those factors at play, but yeah.
Very good. Well, Anthony, let me ask your opinion on what our reaction has been. Should there be more Cobra helicopters sent? Should we get more involved?
Yeah. I also want to add thing to your point about young people, angry young people. I mean, this is not new. In The Wild Ones, the movie that created the Hells Angels, Marlon Brando is the leader of the pack. Somebody said, "What do you want?" He says, "What have you got?" And that kind of anger of young people, and everything we currently know about the recruitment of ISIS and so forth, is it appeals to discontented young people, which is exactly the same people that rock and roll used to appeal to, And so this is not new. I think that the sexual anger is something different. It's a different issue. I think partly they're conjoined in this case, but they are separate issues, I believe. Send in the Cobra helicopters.
Very good. Okay. Lindsay, I want to ask you about calls for Sharia law and women's subjugation spreading maybe to this country. Does that sound like it could happen?
I think you've seen sort of ideologies affect some people in this country, certainly with the Boston bombings and even recent sort of wars between police and people, whether it's a minority or whatever the groups are. So I think ideologies are sort of spreading. Whether they would actually come over to the United States, I think that's sort of debated. There's been some reports, but I think it's definitely something that is seeping in. But hopefully with respect to Sharia law, I know I was asked before I came on set that just a question with respect to how are Middle Eastern countries handling some of this. And even going back to Saudi Arabia, once they opened up, they started opening girls' schools back in, I think, the 50s. And there were reports that during that early period, there was much resistance. There was a lot of resistance. People were protesting outside the schools. A year later, some of those same protesters were trying to get their daughters into those schools. So I think there's this eclectic mix right now in the Middle East. Certainly Qatar, as this ambassador was accounting for, she was mentioning that it's more of a conservative state, but that she thinks that when she saw the former First Lady, she was one of the first to be really vocal in the state. And so she came out, she was wearing her headdress proudly and her headscarf, and I think that really encouraged a lot of women to have a voice. And so whether it's Sharia law or whatever else, I think people it's important for them to find their identity and for them to, whether they're identifying with a religious group or different types of law, I think certainly they need to feel that they are accomplishing what they would like to personally do in this life instead of being subjugated to the whims of others or an extremist group.
And we can hope for progress. Mm-hmm. I want to thank our panelists for their insights. Stay with us. In our upcoming segment, we'll discuss something entirely different, working on Wall Street. This is BEN, and I'm Patrick Sheldon.